this is not necessarily a chess episode, and because this is not necessarily a chess episode, I'm sorry, this is not necessarily a news episode, but I wanted to show my new screen. I didn't like my other one. It's not necessarily I didn't hate it. It was more so it took too long. I guess to get from point A to point B, and I wanted to speed it up. This one is also a little bit longer than I want, and there are going to be a few seconds that I'm going to shave off. But nevertheless, that's going to be the new one going forward. Minus the color. The red is a little strong. I know in the UK that represents like labor, but we're not in the UK. Nevertheless, I love it. So that's going to be the new one. We've spent, I think we did like a segment that was 3 hours today, my wife and I. So I am dead tired, but I want to get some chess in. And the most honest chess that I get in is when I do it live. So let's play some chess. We get some analysis, and we can also get in some political musings in between. On these shows, I have no expectation of people watching this, if I'm being honest. However, people do meander in. So welcome to the Chess Cafe. And I suppose that there may be a group of people who may actually like Blitz, may think it's actually cool to catch it live. So I do these games, and people may be able to follow the game. And some may just want the company of having somebody else around where there's just the voice in your ear that you've seen constantly over and over and over again. Even though I can't see you, the voice itself, to some degree, smooth and melodic, constant, everlasting. All right, so let's get some chess in. I am in the 1800s at this point. Not necessarily in bad shape, but not necessarily in great shape. So this should make for pretty good drama. Meaning I'm not like in this kind of brutally dominant state where I'm just crushing everybody. And the games are a foregone conclusion, nor am I in this state that is just kind of weak and pathetic. Now, that said, here are the rules, and the rules are always the same, which is kind of why I like doing this live, because when I'm at home by myself, I ignore these rules. Any game that you lose have to be analyzed. All losses have to be analyzed, even if it's a loss on time, because the question becomes, why did you lose on time? All losses have to be analyzed. That is hard sometimes because you kind of want to get right back into the fight after taking a brutal, vicious loss. There are some people who take a loss and want to get back into the fight. There are others who don't. I tend to like to immediately play again to resolve my ego of that failing. And let's see, oftentimes I would also analyze wins. So this rule is here more so for losses, but when I'm doing the videos, I tend to do both. And I don't control the opponents. That's the other thing. I click a button and they deliver somebody who's there, who is willing to pay a 3-minute game. If there's any disconnect, that's an automatic loss. This is a cage match from the standpoint of chess. So this should be awesome. Balthazar, can we analyze Theresa May's checkers? That was a huge loss. You know what's funny, dude? How long was checkers ago? How long was that ago? That was like maybe a year ago? And she was really hard on this point of trying to sell her deal, right? And this was Boris Johnson resigned, and Boris Johnson resigned in this kind of, epic, clownish way, in Parliament, making this kind of pitch about Brexit and all this other stuff, bloviating about how awesome Brexit is. That was when she was saying, we are going to leave in March. Hands down, we're leaving in March. We're leaving in March. There's no force on this planet that's going to stop me from leaving in March. And they did not leave in March. They didn't even leave in April. Now this has been punted all the way out to October. And not just that, they have to run in European elections, which people are pissed. She lost 1,334, not her personally, but the Tory party lost 1,334, what did they call it, conciliators or counselors. Think about that. That's an astonishing loss. That's more than they've had in 24 years. This was a brutal, vicious loss. And it was very clear what it was. Brexit. It was clear and unequivocal. Brexit. The way the government has handled Brexit. And the people were punishing them for it. This is not a resurgence of the Lib Dems. I know some media personalities are pushing this. This is not a resurgence of the Liberal Democrats. This is a repudiation of the failings of the two parties. And then the wild part, the media will come out and say, yeah, both parties were punished by this. They lost 1,334 seats. Labor lost 10% of that. Not even 10% of that. Labor lost like 100 and something seats. But both got punished, yes. If you want to say punished in the sense of, one got hit by a car and the other one got hit on the knuckles, yes, both were punished. It was amazing. Chunky Mark's, Chunky Mark is fucking hilarious. He's hilarious. He's hilarious. What's this? Hold on. What's going on? Something's happening. I have, on these days, I always say blaze one if you got one. This is Soapbox After Dark and Chess, so it's a little bit of both. What is this? Gaza rockets fired at Israel. 1 Israeli dead, 6 Palestinians said killed. Just to show you what I'm looking at. Four Israelis dead in rocket barrages. Over 600 rockets launched from Gaza. Hamas, what the fuck? The thing that always annoys me, there is no conflict, no other conflict that I am aware of, where they say, hey, there were 500 rockets fired. Okay? Like, this is something that seems to be unique to Palestinians. It's the number of rockets that seems to matter to make it's like everything they try to make it look as if this is a war between two sides. One side is nuclear weapons and the backing of a superpower, and the other side doesn't even have running water at 90% of the territory. Yes, this is totally a war. That's exactly what that is. This is absolute subjugation of one of the other of this particular territory, and the pushback on this. Imagine for the moment if the French pushed back on the Nazis and people started wagging their finger saying, how dare you push back at the Nazis invading your territory? It's like, come on. Utter insanity. But yeah, ground invasion. Yes, Jeff Kuntz. Yes. That will be next. Ground invasion. Israeli kills Hamas money man in first targeted hit since 2014. Hamas leader says calm will be restored if Israel implements understandings. I got into this back and forth with Lee Stranahan, and we were talking about voting, and I was making a point. I'm going to say, dude, they are suppressing the vote in the various areas in these various states, and he gets puffed up and makes this point like, no, those people can vote if those people wanted to vote. They just need to get the ID and appropriate, blah, 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 blah. And I was making a point like, dude, I don't necessarily care what people could do. I care what is being put in their path to make their path more difficult. Even if that path is 1% more difficult, it is being made 1% more difficult for political reasons, and it matters, especially if you're talking about we're in some kind of democratic order. This is kind of similar to that. But my point is this. It is known that if you put those barriers in places, it's going to have a certain effect. It doesn't matter what people could do. What we care about, for the most part, is what people do. It's like people could theoretically do something. No, what do people do? This is kind of the same way with the Israeli-Palestinian thing. If you put people in an open-air ghetto, it's like, what do you think those people are going to do? You think those people are going to love you for that? And not just love you for that. Who do you think those people are going to support to push back against it? People who are outside of the situation, maybe in the United States or in Europe, somewhere warm and cozy, and they look at this and say, hey, the Hamas thing doesn't really benefit them. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty easy for you to say in your nice, cozy place with your warm tea. And not just in your warm tea, the same thing that's displayed in those territories also displayed in the United States. People in poverty don't necessarily make the best of choices. It has nothing to do with the person. It has everything to do with the poverty. Same thing, however, dealing with anger and righteous anger, meaning righteous indignation doesn't necessarily lead to the best politically minded positions. And there is a propaganda angle from the standpoint of the West that takes a perspective that Israel is right and that these other people are just terrorists and troublemakers, which of course is turned entirely on its head. All of these avenues, peaceful resistance, these guys are still beaten down and shot. It's aggravating to see this, because to some degree these guys are functioning on they're not robots, and I'm talking about the Israelis also. They're not absolved from this. But you have a situation of people born into something. Does an Israeli that's 18 years old, that's lived there his entire life, that's to some degree been militarized by the society that he lives in, is it his fault that he goes out with a gun in hand and shoots a Palestinian? Some people will say, yeah, it's his fault. He had agency. But at which point did he have agency in this process? My audience may hate that perspective or that, that way of pointing at that, issue. But it is true. At which point did that kid have agency in this process? I understand that there's some people who are able to kind of spiral out of those things, but the prevailing wind in that society is somewhat of a militarized society that believes it is under military siege, when really this is somewhat turned on its head. I don't know, man. Let me make one last point, though. This is not a religious issue. People like to sometimes make this a religious issue. Oh, God, these guys have been at each other's throats for eons. There's no way to get this done. This is an issue of land. This is an issue of one side being held in an open-air ghetto. This is the issue of one side being backed by the United States. This is a European colony that at some point would have been settled in various places of Africa. There's nothing, this is not a religious issue. That's the only point I'm making. But yeah, Jeff, this doesn't look good. Doesn't look good at all. Yeah. Some kids threw rocks at us, so time to run them over with tanks. And the wild part, if I am not mistaken, didn't they make that a law? Or like it's fair game? And not just that. Chris Hedges talks about cases where these guys provoke some of the people there. This is kind of what I'm getting at with this thing of the society creates this tension between the two sides, and not just tension, almost a seething, like disgust. But between the two sides, the indigenous population there has a certain righteous indignation to push back, even if that's somewhat of a violent pushback. There's a secondary question of whether or not the violent pushback will be successful or whether it's not even productive. But from a moral justification standpoint, did people who had their place occupied by foreign troops have a moral justification to push back? Fuck yeah. And why wouldn't the same be true for them? It's weird the way we look at this. Like, we never look at this from the perspective of the individuals that's there. Like there's a certain degree of propaganda, in fact, that suppresses that notion of looking at it from the perspective of the individuals that's there. It's really bizarre. Garnome, I don't hate average Israeli citizens, and I believe Israel has a right to exist despite how it was founded. Yeah, they shoot and prison kids all the time and fuck people. Yeah, they do. But this is kind of part of my angst towards that has to do with I think the same reason King had this issue with the Vietnam War. Like, you have an apartheid state in the same way or in a similar way. It's not the same, so scratch that. In a similar way, you had the South with African Americans in the United States, kind of disenfranchised out of these various positions in a society and so forth. Um, but you have a complete population that's completely de-empowered, and not just de-empowered, is at at the boot of any cop was really there. Like, if that makes sense. Like, they have no power within this process. Think of being in a permanent situation where you had American cops without necessarily a judicial system to care or look at what those cops were doing. This is kind of what I'm getting at. This kind of this policing of people who hate your guts. Like, this is not a good situation. That's pretending like it is. In the way that these guys pretend in the media is not on point. The rocket thing bugs me. The rocket thing has always bugged me. Nowhere else does that. There's nowhere else that does that. They might have talked about the number of people that are dead, the number of people who were killed. Yes. They might even talk about the amount of destruction that had taken place, meaning costs, numbers. But they never say 20 rockets were fired in so and so. Who does that? It's unique to this. At least I think it is. I could be wrong on this. If I'm not wrong, if I am wrong, please point it out to me. It seems unique to this, and it seems unique to this in order to create this impression that there isn't a war here, or that there are two equal sides fighting one another. Let me disabuse you of that. One side is nuclear weapons. Let's be clear. This is an open air ghetto prison that these guys have, where they've expropriated more and more land, and when they go in for a killing, they just go in and bomb various areas in this open air prison. Like, this is grisly stuff. All right. Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to check the story out afterwards to go further into it. But that's apparently escalating. All right. Let's get some chess in. This was a loss. I got my ass kicked by this GM. I am, at the very least, still 1,800. The sound is going to go off while I'm playing. That's because I have music playing, and if it shows up, I will get demonetized. So, let's play some chess. And wish me luck. I am playing for the honor of the soapbox. My goal is to push this to 1,900. It burns when I lose, and that's the other reason I like playing online. It adds a degree of danger to it. Being online in general is somewhat dangerous to me. I know this sounds weird. Dangerous in what way? Dangerous making an ass of yourself, or fucking something up, or getting something wrong. There's a lot of dangers associated with it, depending on the things that you value and the things that you hold dear. So in this case, losing is one of those things I hold dear. It's like my flower, my precious flower. It's like, oh my gosh, she's trying to take my flower. All right, let's get some chess in and wish me luck. That was quick.
Check. 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 Time warning. Check. 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 Checkmate.
Gotta be honest, I don't know what the fuck happened. Somewhere along the way, something went wrong. I think that king walk was ambitious and unnecessary. At least that's the first thing that's coming to mind. This I don't hate. The knight is lazy, but that's fine. Fine with this. And I'm definitely okay with this. Alright, this is where he gets counterplay. I don't want the knight even getting anywhere close to this area. Alright, I thought this was okay. This gets counterplay on this. Alright, so now the play revolves around this point. There are no other breakpoints in the game. And maybe this is where I went wrong.
Check.
Alright. This is a dominant position. This needs to be defended. That's a bad move. That's a horrible move, actually. This. The weird part about it, he didn't take this pawn. He called check with the queens. Alright, I wonder if there's something else that I'm missing. Rooks work better when they have something as a breakthrough point. Black black needs to somehow break through or create something where he can break through. Bishop defend better because no rook wants to exchange itself for a bishop under normal circumstances. I mean, given all things being equal. Alright, this creates another defense.
Check.
Alright, again, this looks fine. This is ambitious. And I think this is where things go wrong. The black king doesn't need to make this walk. In fact, what's wrong with this? I mean, ultimately, black's problem is that this bishop clogs up the ability to get to anything. He needs an open file. He needs somewhere where he can get through. As long as these pawns are this way, he's stuck. He can't even get to this or access this. So maybe this. Even if he pushes down. What thought of this? Because nothing can attack this right away. It takes 2 moves to attack it, and this is still guarding. But assume for the moment, what if he takes? He's not going to take this. Yeah. Oh, God, that's horrible. That's horrible. That's horrible. That's horrible. God, that's horrible. Fucking blitz. So, this is why it's horrible. So, think of it this way. It boils down to where black's advantage lies, if black has any advantage at all. Black's advantage has to do with the centrality of its pieces. His rooks are lined up against a point, meaning these pieces are tied down to the defense of their realm, if you want to call it that way. So black needs to figure out how to make gains without losing what he has, unless he's going to do some kind of transition. For the king to move from where it is to all the way over here allows white's king to do the same, with the difference being that white's king is moving from a situation that was weaker to a situation where it's stronger, and black is doing the opposite. That's a horrible fucking move, a horrible fucking strategy. That is horrible. And you know, and in retrospect, maybe this is better. This. Followed by this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, at this point, it's even. I mean, with white, maybe a little stronger. In fact, a lot stronger. Well, it depends. You know, it doesn't depend. Black's king. God, this is. Black's king needs to get back over here because he needs to defend these pawns. Yeah, that's brutal. That hurts. Alright. Oh, man. And they're sending me to the depths of hell to 1500 player. Alright. Fair enough. Spartacus in the pits. Alright. This guy may not even show up. Where are you from, dude? Iceland. I got married in Iceland. Have I told you guys that story? My wife and I don't even know if I have pictures on this computer. I don't want to say eloped. We didn't elope. It wasn't an elopement in those terms. We, every year we go to, we travel somewhere. At least that's how we used to do it. And we got to the point where we were like, well, when we were going to get married, I wanted to get married somewhere. I didn't necessarily want to get married in the States. So some of the other countries had marriage laws that made it difficult to do that. Iceland was open. Iceland was extremely open and pretty liberal in their marriage laws. And so I have a marriage certificate that I can't read with really interesting and at the time terrifying experiences to go along with it. All right, let's kick some ass. Come on, Fenton. It's your move, dude. You got a minute and 30 seconds. Is that what we're gonna do? Swing and thrash like brutes. Give me that. I'll take that. You don't want to take that night now, do you? I know it. I know it, man. I make bad moves sometimes, too. Sometimes. Alright. So, you already know. Yeah, you know. I think you know what's about to happen. Guess I gotta do that now, right? I suppose. Alright, I suppose I gotta do that now too. And yeah, that's not what I'm trying to get at, dude. I don't want that pawn. That's what I'm trying to get at. Juicy center. I want to get to the juicy center of a Tootsie Robot. Here we go. Let's do this first. Right? And let's do that. Dude, why are you interrupting my designs? Get out the way. Go, give me that. Give me that. Oh. Bad things about to happen, Finn. I hate to tell you this, dog. This is not going to end well for you. You may just want to let your time run down. Oh, you don't want to let your time run down. All right. Go, give me that. Give me that. Alright, get out the way. Lock in our advantages.
Time warning.
Yeah. Whoa. Cut that shit out, Finn. Alright. No need to go over that game. Alright. It wasn't a bad game. I mean, it was just kind of dull, for me, guys. It's center counter. I castle queenside just to get attacking opportunities. The problem with this move is bad stuff starts to happen. I couldn't tell if I had time to add one move into it. Meaning if I did this, does he do something like this? Oh, okay. That was rude. All right. Yeah, that. We got that. All right. Now we just gotta win it in time.
Check. Check.
You can resign from here, Magnet. I know you're thinking about it, dude. Time is precious. Believe me. In the last moments of your life, you're gonna wish you had this time back. And you're not. You'll never get it back, dude. Alright, stop fucking with me. Give me that thing. Come on, Magnet. It's your move. Unless you're just gonna let your time run down. That's a dick move, Magnet. And I'm aware that I did that in the beginning when I was gonna take your queen. Touche, sir. Touche. If I'm being honest, though, I don't necessarily care about how you lose. I just care that you lose. So while this might be something that is off, your own personal victory, in no way did you best me. Alright, this is Soapbox, Chess 1743 Moon Pro. Alright, Moon Pro. Let's see what you got. Ouch. That as a man, that had hurt. I applaud you, sir, for being able to make that move. Gotta take that though.
Check.
Hmm.
Checkmate.
That was horrid. But I have to be honest, I didn't see an adequate reply. I looked at, I guess this, but if I'm being honest, I didn't want that. So I got to checkmate instead. All right, it's a loss. Let's take a look. All right, this is fine. It's almost like a King's Indian, but cows on Queen's side. I don't hate this. In fact, I don't think this is bad at all. This needs to be secured. But let's keep going.
Check.
You know, it's funny. It's almost like the bishop may be even better here. The check may be premature or unnecessary. This, as simple as it is, may hold it. I mean, him building up on that is almost pointless because the bishop holds it. He would have to give his bishop here in order to attack this. This holds up this pawn also. My question is always, why don't you? It's like, how do you miss stuff like that in the game? And I guess maybe because it's blitz here, just keep going. Let's see. Be right back. Give me 1 second.
check, 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 check,
I lost this, but this wasn't a horrible game. It doesn't necessarily hurt my pride to lose this game. All right. This is called Alakine. The Alakine defense would look a little weird, but basically, the main line is to chase the knight. This goes again back to the hypermodern school of thought in regards to the openings. Classical theory has it that the goal of kind of a war, take the center, and with control of the center, you have logistics where you can essentially operate across the rest of the battlefield. With regards to hypermodern is making this argument that just because somebody is controlling or holding onto a ground doesn't necessarily mean they're controlling it. It's almost like topping from the bottom. That ultimately pieces can radiate their effectiveness at a distance. It doesn't necessarily have to be controlling spaces itself. Also, controlling the center in that allows for opportunities to counterattack. So think of it as breaks on the edges, meaning on pawn centers. White comes up with a pawn center, black tries to destroy the pawn center. Black makes his entire life destroying the pawn center the white has erected, that type of stuff. But Alakine goes into that same thought. So the thought is chase. This. And there are various plays from here. Sometimes white tries to overwhelm. Essentially, I'm going to destroy black with brute force in this kind of outright refutation of what's taking place. Like full on. Because if white can get away with this, meaning white is making this point of, I don't think you can get away with that. White has been extraordinarily provocative with this. With this opening, white is taking a huge amount of space in the center. Just because you take space doesn't necessarily mean you can hold that space. Think of the Russian Revolution and the grounds that the White Army took before the Red Army starts running back. Same thing with this. Think of all the ground the Nazis took, for that matter. Just because you can take this ground doesn't mean you can hold this ground. And oftentimes, white is hard pressed to hold this ground. And this gets complex. These openings get pretty feisty, to say the least. Both sides are trying to tell the other that they're outright wrong. But saner sometimes is this. sometimes it's pawn takes with the thought of this. Yeah, but it's a dynamic opening. All right. Now I want an outright attack on the black king, which is why my pieces are starting to float towards the black king. And regardless of what this started off as, this is, yeah, he has a presence in the center. I guess I have more in the center, but he has a presence. But my pieces are trying to line up. And the wild part, this is a bone in my throat. It becomes a problem. So in context, bishop d3 doesn't work, at least not immediately. If white is going to do that, meaning if white's task, if its objective is really to have a broadside on the king, then the bishop to some degree is instrumental into that, which means the bishop can't move. This has to move. Right? Does that work? No. That's fine. No, let's go with it. Maybe I'm wrong. All right. I'm solidifying the center, but I'm trying to get an attack on the king. This bishop needs to move. Now, this lazy bishop living off the system is a problem, because I can't castle and get the other rook into the game. Also, I guess there's a potential of castle on this side, but I want to have a broadside on the king. All right. In retrospect, I should have taken that bishop. Considering what happened, I should have taken that bishop. And that hurt. I could even take him back. It's like being slapped in a club. The only thing you can do is look at the person like, I'm just going to take my drink and walk away. You're lucky, sir. So, do you remember that Spider-Man slap where dude finds Peter Parker at a bar, slaps the shit out of him because he thinks he's trying to mack his girl? And Peter Parker just looks at him. It's like, oh, God. Talk about most worst day of your life. All right, clearly I can't take that. That pawn, that bishop is Guido. That's who that bishop is. That bishop can't be taken. That bishop is openly calling for rebellion in my ranks, and I can't do shit about it. Because if I do shit about it, the superpower is going to get involved into this conflict, and I'm trying to avoid that superpower getting involved into this conflict. So, I leave that bishop alone, and I just try to guard. All right. I'm trying to crack this open. I'm trying to crack this open while balancing protecting this.
Check.
And that's not going well. And that just failed. If you notice, this bishop is holding. This needed to move. The king is in a weak position. Mental note.
Check.
Move the fucking king. Ouch. That hurt. I think all of my fighting spirit left me after that. That hurt. Talking about sapping the strength out of a man. Please explain the definition of Zionism means. The definition of Zionism? That kind of depends on who you're talking to, right? I mean, for me, the definition of Zionism, and again, kind of depends on who you talk to. But in broad strokes, somebody who believes that the land that's in that country of Palestine belongs to them by somehow divine right. Somewhat of a bizarre claim. When I was in Israel, there would be people who from New Jersey who were claiming that that land is theirs. But again, that definition varies. In practical application, that seems to be the way the point of view tends to go. All right, let's see.
check, 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 time, check,
Yeah, I am playing poorly. Well, pawn X is also strong, but still. All right, let's. All right, this is fine, awkward, cramping, a little cramping. All right, the problem with the position for this one is here. So Black needs to get his pieces out while avoiding any kind of weirdness on this rank. I was willing to give him the trade-off here with the thought that it adds to the pawn center that eventually could be pushed. Alright, I didn't think I can immediately take.
check,
And that's just a massive fuck up. Alright, so I didn't think I could immediately take. So the rook moved. Also, my point of view was that the bishop was under threat. I was like, well, the bishop is under threat. The bishop needs to be defended. So, next move comes around. All right, let's move the bishop out of harm's way. Problem was
check,
also fucking knight. Fucking knight. You can have multiple concerns. And the concerns can be equally as problematic. All right, so if not that, what? Knight can't come in. That's premature. I suppose this with the thought of bringing it here.
Check.
No, I don't know. I don't know what he does after this.
Check.
Somebody can even make the argument that if you're going to move the knight there, why not just move the knight there?
Check.
So what? I mean, it's not amazing, but it's not horrible. Not to mention, whatever white does, he has to get his house in order. That's a tempo. No. It's probably this with the thought of here. But either way, that allows black an opportunity to take the center in two ways, even this. So the position's not horrible. I don't mind losing games. Like if it's just a good game. It's one of those things of, oh, that sucks, well played. I hate fuck ups. You have no idea how much I hate fuck ups.
Check.
You can never get the full expression of the individual in the context of fuck up. It's not all the time. Sometimes a full expression doesn't necessarily mean a win. And it could happen in trying to recover from a failing. So, don't misunderstand me. Will Sanders' new book come out before? What's going on? It's not a question. Zionism was founded in religious principle. What are you talking about? They were atheistic Jews. I don't know the argument that you guys are having. Yeah, Zionism is not religious belief. Zionism is something different. Like Chuck Schumer. Not Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer's Jewish. Who was it? The guy who comes out and said he was a Zionist. Well, yeah, I mean, that's not a religious thing. That's a land thing, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I understand it. Political and religious intertwine, yeah, I can go with that. It's like trying to separate America's foundation from religion. I mean, it's a colonial project by atheistic Jews that was trying to find somewhere to live. I mean, I don't know, how else to put it. That project was thought to be founded in multiple places. It just ended up in Palestine. And ending up in Palestine, it went into high gear after World War II. But here's the thing. Having an atrocity happen to you doesn't necessarily allow you to turn around and commit an atrocity to somebody else. I mean, for fuck's sake. It's like African Americans were sold into slavery, so it's okay for African Americans to, rise up violently and take Texas and suppress the population of Texas. It's like, come on, nobody would, I don't know anyone that would be like, yes, that's, fucking A, let's kill some people. But nevertheless, that's okay there. That's okay there. All right, I am going to get something to eat because I am hungry. And I've had my ass handed to me in front of the world. I will see you guys in a few. I was about to say if you enjoy the content, but this is not necessarily a typical thing. It's just kind of habit. I'll see you guys in a few. Thanks all. And this. Okay, maybe not.